Ladies, are you ready for some real talk? The AchieveHERs Unfiltered podcast isn't a bunch of fluffy stuff about career fashion or networking do's and don'ts. It's real heart-to-heart conversations with inspiring leaders. It's from women, by women, and for women. Tune in for a panel discussion on today's hottest topics that women face every day. We'll also discuss things that rarely enter the conversation. Subscribe to the AchieveHERs Unfiltered podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Welcome to AchieveHERs Unfiltered at Second Soul Studios. Thank you, Kelly, and your amazing team for having us here. And this is really exciting. This is our first one.
Very exciting.
I love this. Inaugural.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Kelly Jordan, and I'm really looking forward to having a really good unfiltered conversation. I want to introduce my panel, and when I say I want to introduce, I want you to talk a little bit about yourself so we can put into context the rest of your story so we can figure out your blind items.
Okay. How much do you want to know? How much time do you have?
Right. Why don't you go first, Camille?
Okay. Well, I'm Camille Hebting. I've been here in the Clearwater area for about 7 years. I've been involved with the Chamber for about 5 or so years, which is how I came to know you, Kelly, and you, Pamela, and then how I got involved with AchieveHERs, which is a group that operates under Amplify Clearwater, which is our local Chamber of Commerce, which I'm on the board of. So that's a little bit about me. I do marketing and PR. I work for a fantastic company in Clearwater called West CMR. And that's it. I mean, what else do you want to know?
We're going to get into that for sure. Pamela.
I am Pamela Lee. I moved here from the Midwest about 5 years ago. I am currently the Chief Financial Officer at Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas in West Pasco County. I was really sent to the AchieveHERs group by my CEO, Mike Sutton. He told me it'd be a great group to get involved with, and it has been. It's been wonderful so far, and I think it's only been about 3 months or so, roughly, and I'm on the board as well, so I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity.
I love how you've both been here for 5 years. I have my 6-year anniversary of being in Clearwater, January 3rd.
Wow.
So
that's excellent.
We're all about the
at
the same time. I love that. I'm going to read the AchieveHERs mission. I love it, and you were a part of this group that came up with this mission, and it is to advance, amplify Clearwater. AchieveHERs provides engaging experiences that intentionally foster leadership through an inclusive culture of support, wisdom, and community connections to nurture personal and professional lives for all women. I love that. And Camille, talk a little bit about the reason why we're doing this podcast, especially because you were a part of making that mission statement, and I love it.
Yeah. So AchieveHERs is a group that Amplify inherited from the Clearwater Regional Chamber. For those that are
Old school.
For those that know about the history a little bit, and for those of you that are listening from outside of Tampa Bay, because that's what we're here for. Yeah. We're just a group of women, like Kelly mentioned, that are trying to basically help other women succeed, right? We're like a big group of cheerleaders for each other. And in the, I believe, 10 years that AchieveHERs has existed, we found ourselves with one issue in particular, which was how do we continue to grow our reach when everything that we do is limiting in a way? We were finding ourselves, hosting luncheons and other events that limited us in the number of guests that could attend, or trying to host speakers that limited us in the number of people that could come speak to us. We had women that wanted to participate but didn't necessarily have the resources to come and meet us or pay for the ticket price. And so this podcast is a way for the group to kind of go beyond those obstacles and say, if we have something to talk about, which we do, how do we put it out there for more and more women to participate? And I think that's a great way to do it. I like to talk, so it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I think we all like to talk. I mean, I do. So let's get into it. Let's cheers.
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 And now let's go with our subject for this podcast. Why women sabotage other women. Let's talk about some of your experiences and then circle back and see if we can answer that. Sound good?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Why don't you go, Pamela?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity in a former career to work at a company that was mostly women. I mean, really only 3 or 4 men in the entire organization. And everyone was vying to be in the inner circle of the CEO. And so it was a lot of women stepping over other women to make sure that you're always in that inner circle.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because when you think of companies, a lot of times it's the reverse, where you've got a lot of men, and then there's that one seat. We talked about it before, where there's that one seat for the woman. So we're just kind of all clamoring to get to them.
Yep.
Yeah, so what happened?
I mean, eventually I left the company. It was a very toxic situation where not only did I start questioning myself, both from a professional standpoint, but I started caring more and more about physical features as well. You know, is my hair long enough? Do I need more Botox? Should I get filler? Wow. I need to wear makeup every day. You know, I need to look a certain way so that I can make sure that, you know, it really was this competing, very mean girl situation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one day I woke up and was like, this isn't who I am. And I walked away from it.
But it turned you into that because of what was going on.
I was seeing myself turning into that person I didn't want to be.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Camille?
Well, it's interesting because I was going to share a different story, but now that Pamela's talking about that, it brings another one to mind, just to tell you how many times this has happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully us sharing those stories can make you realize that it happens to everyone. So don't feel bad if you were ever in a situation that you participated in it or saw it happen. But similarly, I was with a professional entourage that was mainly women, and I mean, almost exclusively. And I never questioned the way that the person that was my manager was acting around me, although I realized very clearly that she was acting differently around other people. And I'm talking like personal preference type situation where she was inviting me to things that no other women employees or other employees were invited to. She was sharing things with me that shouldn't have been shared with somebody that, you know, you had to report to. And it never bothered me. It never bothered me, and it should have. And in hindsight, I look at that situation and I say, how come it didn't bother me that other women weren't treated correctly or right in that particular setting, just because I wasn't treated badly or incorrectly? And funnily enough, when I left that company, you know, there were the other women that were still working there, ended up leaving shortly after, at least a few that I was, you know, close to. And I think we all kind of played a role in that situation, but all of us played different roles. And one thing that I'm thankful for is they don't, you know, look back and say, well, you should have helped us and you didn't. But in hindsight, that's how I look at it. I said, you know, I wasn't the one necessarily doing the sabotaging, but at the same time, wasn't I? Well, if I was there passively just saying, well, I'm getting the good treatment, so why do I care?
Mm-hmm. Anybody who says that they haven't, I mean, look, we were talking about this earlier. What is that saying that one of the Selling Sunset women said? She's like, am I the drama? She's like, am I the drama? It's like, look, we all, there are friends that we know that they do a really good job of staying out of the drama, but we all want to hear a little bit of that tea. We all want to kind of go in and be like, oh, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you? And how is she over there? And how, you know, so I think that we've all participated in one way or another, fed into it. You know, I mean, I know just here locally, there are women who swear up and down that they are so supportive of other women, and that's almost like their mantra. Mm-hmm. And then they turn around and you see them being like, oh, but her, and then they're mean to another group. It's very, you know, they can be cliquey or whatever, but it's sad because it's just a lot of times how we are, because we have been made to feel that we need to be that way.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what I experienced at the company I was telling you about. It was all about women, you know, women-led, women-founded, and then how are you treating the people, the women that you are working with and working for? Mm-hmm. And once I had that realization, it was like, oh, you're not practicing what you speak here.
Yeah, and I was very intrigued by this subject because when we talked about doing this podcast and talked about being unfiltered, there needs to be some, we're talking about these things, but when people are listening to it, maybe there's a little self-reflection, like how can we actually practice what we preach when we sit there and we say, oh, I want to support other women, and I want, to be a mentor, and I'm happy when everyone's happy, and I'm not drama, and I don't want anything bad for that person, when sometimes that is the case and it's kind of masked by this. Yeah. But I support other women, and I say that, and I hashtag it on social media, women empowering women, because I had a lunch. Well, during that entire lunch, did you talk shit about someone? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right, you did. It's just, it's how do we get out of that and make a difference? So you left that job.
I did.
You left the job, and do you talk to anybody still?
It's funny, I actually talked to a couple of the other women who were in different leadership roles. They're no longer with that company either. So they also had the realization. So I would say of the 4 main leaders that were there, 3 of them have left.
So you both talked about work. What about in your personal lives?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure it happened, because it does. And you brought something up, Kelly, that I think is one of the reasons why we do it as women, is there's this sense of belonging, right? There's regardless of who you are, where you live, who you hang out with, you want to be, even when you're an introvert, you want to at least have a group of friends, right? A group of people that you can kind of attach to. And sometimes when you're trying really hard to attach to a certain group of people, or you've been told this is a group of people you should try to attach to, in the networking professionally or personally, you find yourself saying, well, if they act a certain way, maybe me acting the same way is going to actually get me in. So, when you mentioned, am I the drama, and did you gossip about this person or that person at the luncheon? I feel like it's one of those things that we all do, whether it's in our personality or not, in order to feel like we are doing the same as the other women. And I realize this is kind of like putting the blame on somebody else, but I say that to say we've all done it because of the way that society is set up, okay? We've all done it because there's inequality in the workplace, and we're talking about trying to get closest to the CEO so we can, keep our jobs, or guys do it too. If you don't play golf and you can't golf with the boss, then you're out. Then you have FOMO. It's the same thing, right? Yeah. And we've made to believe that there's not enough for all of us to share, so we have to fight for it, whatever it is that we're fighting for, whether it's a job, whether it's the attention of a person, whether it's, whatever it is, the spotlight, the camera, whatever it may be.
I feel like it's also an easy distraction. I've seen where, other male executives have enjoyed, because there's this whole, the women fight all the time. They're against each other, or they're everyone's trying to one up so that they are the favorite of that. That's just how women are. And they sometimes they poke that, and they create drama just to watch them sit back and watch the women, fight. It's when you look at, look at all the fun reality shows. It's a lot of women usually fighting, and that's where we all kind of go to, and creating that drama. It's like, okay, they've talked that storyline to death, but they continue to do it and continue to do it because it's fun to watch. But
I think women also do it as a way to feel better about their own insecurities.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little bit of that.
Well, that's where we go to personal lives. Yes. Like, don't we love it when we're together and, everything seems fine, but then there is that one person that maybe isn't there, and why isn't she there? Oh, well, she's having a hard time. She's having a really hard time, and this and this and this. And it's like, oh, well, God, that's terrible, because, maybe it makes me feel better that my life isn't as messed up right now.
Yeah.
So why do we do that? And how do we stop it? Is it even possible to stop it, or is it just kind of who we are and what we'll always do? And how can we not be part of the drama? How can we not be
I think a lot of it's self-awareness. Really realizing, like I mentioned, I realized I was becoming someone who I didn't recognize and I didn't want to be. So having that self-awareness to pull yourself out of that situation, having the self-awareness to catch yourself when you start feeding it, like, oh, well, Susie, let me tell you about her. Like, just stop, really just not carrying that forward. And then also moving your own ego out of the way. I read a really great book called No Ego by Cy Wakeman. And it really talks about moving your ego aside in a leadership position and in your life. And it kind of makes you get rid of like, oh, she's doing that to me because, well, whatever the reason is. So I think for me, it's a combination of those two things.
It must have been tough, though, because you had to pull yourself out of a situation that you could have stayed in just for your own. I mean, it was a job. Mm-hmm. You were, advancing your career. You were, making money, paying your bills, doing these things. Like, it can't be easy to look at it and say, just because it isn't the right thing for me and for other people around me, like, I need to get away from that. Like, how did you do that?
It was a really hard decision. I liked the company. I liked the mission. I had coworkers that weren't, actually were good people, good, strong women and those are the women that I still communicate with. It took me a while to come to the realization that I just needed to do something, because at the end of the day, you're not happy. You can convince yourself as much as you want that I'm happy in this role, but if it's a constant toxic situation and you're constantly having to worry about how you're dressed and how you look each day and fighting, oh, she didn't talk to me today, so like, do I need to do something else, or who's spreading some rumor or putting bugs in her ear, because it was a constant thing. So once you get out of that, you have like that decompression time where you start to kind of realize all the other things you weren't thinking about in the moment. You're like, oh my gosh, it was far worse than I even realized it was. And kind of having my own almost like therapy that I had to go through to deal with the after effects from everything.
It's such a comparison game, right? Isn't it? I mean,
always.
And we talk about how like social media is what started that, but that's not true. Social media, we were comparing before.
Oh yeah.
I think we look at everything and we say it's not even about jealousy. I don't think it's something where we look at somebody and say, I wish I had what she has. It's more of like, well, why don't I? Mm-hmm. Because everybody else does, right? Isn't that kind of the source of it all?
I think it's a lot of. First of all, we all want a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. Whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, whether you have 2 friends or 200 friends, I think we are humans. And, if we're stuck in a room together, we want to get along and we want to be near each other and we want that contact, that social interaction. So when it's at work or at play, you want to have that, camaraderie and togetherness. And especially, I know it's, women, we love to talk, we love to get together, we love to do things. And I think there is a bit of, well, I want us to all be equal, or maybe me just be a little bit more awesome than everyone in the room or my friend, or I want everyone to like me, or I want to be looked at and I want someone to envy me. It's not, you're right, it's not jealousy. It's more of, well, I want it all, and I want to be everyone's favorite. And, that's where I think we start to get into people even not realizing that they're doing the sabotage or being, mean, whether they realize it or not. And then there's those who totally know they're realizing it and they know they're absolutely doing it. And that's sometimes people get off on that too.
There's plenty of room at the top for all of us ladies.
There really is. There actually is.
Because what I want may be different from what you want and what you want. And we can all be supportive and be at the top and be together. So,
but it is funny how some women will use the whole, women empowering women, let's all the crown thing, let's straighten her crown and let's tell her she's got something in her teeth. And then, don't you know, I watch it all the time. Those same women are like literally going behind people's backs and talking shit.
Like, oh yeah, she didn't even know she had salad in her teeth.
No. And we can make ourselves sound better and be like, oh, I really genuinely do I look at everyone and I'm like, I want to do your makeup because I just want to play makeup because that's like one of my favorite things to do ever. But I do definitely want to give you a different color lipstick, or I want to do something to, I do want everyone to kind of be their best version of themselves. I really do. But have I sat there before and absolutely listened and asked questions when someone was talking bad about someone? I've absolutely done that.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think, being passive about it is what a lot of us do, because a lot of times we're not the leader of the sabotaging, right? We're not the person who initiates the thing. But sitting there next to it and not saying anything because it, A, doesn't affect you, or B, affects you positively in a way, indirectly or directly, is just as bad. I mean, it's just when you have the power, when you're in a position where you have the power to look at a woman and say, hey, don't do that. Or you're in the position to help the person that's about to get sabotaged and say, hey, watch your back with this person, this person, this person. Is that even better? Because you're still having these conversations.
It's not. I think a lot of times we don't speak up because, going back to what Kelly said, you want to feel included and you want to be a part of something. And nobody likes the person that sticks and like, hey guys, that's not funny. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then they might not talk to you anymore. They might, start pushing you out of the inner circle, and you might, not get to go to happy hour wine nights anymore.
Right. You won't get invited anymore because you didn't want to talk about it.
Right. But I think we all have that responsibility. It's not going to end until we start standing up, because it may be Susie today, but tomorrow it's going to be you that they're talking about. So.
Well, and I like the approach that you took to say you realized how toxic it was and you found a way to kind of separate yourself from it. And I feel like if all of us can do that, that's one of the ways that we make it better. Because think about it. You're in a group and you have one toxic person, and then you have 9 other people that are not toxic but are just going along. Well, the second everybody leaves, that one toxic person is not going to have an audience.
Yeah.
So that's how really you take it away from them, right?
It's funny. That's actually, I do that, where the second this person is drama radar goes up, I'm like, yeah.
You separate.
You just kind of, don't engage as much.
Yeah.
And then you end up usually being able to stay out of the line of fire.
Yeah.
But it's still, you get to still hear some of it every once in a while. But there are some people that it will follow them because they think it follows them and they don't realize that they're creating it. So in my workplace right now, I have a great situation with the women that I work with. If anything, it's the best ever because there's been this culture change, and the women in leadership, number one, has grown. And number two, we're kind of looking at each other, saying to each other that we need to be there for each other, to lift each other up, because a lot of times I've been in predominantly male, I'm very lucky to be in the position that I'm in because I'm in senior leadership, just like both of you, and I'm usually surrounded by men who don't give me 2 seconds of their time and dismiss things, and we all have those wonderful horror stories of men treating us like crap in the workplace. But right now, I think there is this awareness for some reason, and I know it's because there's been a lot of changes at my job, but we are sticking together and we are not playing into the sabotage. If anything, we're doing the exact opposite. But it's very rare that happens, which is sad and unfortunate, especially in the workplace, because again, that whole let's be together, let's try and boost each other up, and I'm happy for that promotion you got, I'm happy for that raise that you got. Instead I'm not sitting over the corner saying, oh my God, she's getting paid more than I am, or she spends so much time in his office or her office, doing this or doing that. Put that out of your mind. You had another story.
In a situation where another woman was being sabotaged by women, and there was nothing I can do, but at the same time I felt like completely helpless. I was like, there must be something. And I feel like a lot of time, especially in those workplace related stories because of the way that, the power dynamics are, or the way that tenure is, or the way that personal relationships kind of change the dynamics at work. There's not necessarily much you can do in the moment, but I feel, and I'm just saying this to make myself feel better, but I feel like there's things that you can do after the fact to kind of make it better. And so I just wanted to say that, if you've been in a situation where you feel like you either participated directly or indirectly in another woman getting sabotaged and you regret it, or you feel like there was something you should have done, there's still something you can do. You can still reach out to that person and say, listen, this was a horrible situation. I mean, like in your situation, Pamela, right? If I had known you back then and you had shared all these things with me, I would have never said, well, just stay on and stay put and we'll figure out a way for you to just get past that. I would have 100% been your cheerleader and said, you did the right thing. Now let's work on getting you a better job or a better situation or a better, whatever it may be. And in the personal, it's the same way. I mean, how many times did we tell a girlfriend to stay with a boyfriend although he wasn't right? We've all done it, okay? I personally once came home to my now fiance and told him, I think I broke a couple up tonight. And I was like, but I just couldn't be the person that was just going to nod on and say, yes, you can continue to be patient for him because he's going to come around. He was not going to come around.
Yeah, no.
And so, we've all done it in both ways. And so sometimes when you do the breaking, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes when you do the breaking, it's a good thing. And being a cheerleader for the person that was just broken can be a good thing, Somebody got fired and they shouldn't have because of personal relationships and preferences and who knows what else was going on. Well, you go and you help them find a job and you give them your connections and you write them a letter of recommendation or you help them make their resume look better. There's so many ways that we can help each other, and instead we just focus on sabotaging.
And I guess we kind of, in all of our situations that we're explaining, it's almost, people just do it sometimes to make themselves feel better, which is so messed up. But why do we do that? Why do we feel like, oh, well, if something's wrong with someone, like I know I have friends who, God love them, but they're just like a hot mess. And sometimes I feel like I watch their friends feed into and continue to put them in situations where they're going to be a hot mess just to be that hot mess so they can be like, oh, well, that's that person again for you. And again, we want that camaraderie. We want that bestie. We want those girlfriends. And then if we can all focus on one negative, one person out of that bunch and make it, I mean, how messed up is that? That we continue to do that because it's like in us. Yeah.
When you feed a drama queen the drama that she needs, it's just as bad as when somebody is driving home and you feed them more alcohol. You know what I mean? Like it just one is physical and one is mental, but it's the same thing. They're both dangerous and harmful.
Yeah.
I feel like the best way to look at it is to say, if a situation isn't right, whether it's isn't right for you or isn't right for somebody that you see, walking away is the only way to make it better because you're taking that fuel away from the fire.
And let's face it, we cannot make anybody else do anything.
Correct.
Like there's no advice or nothing that we can sit here and say, oh, well, here's the way around it. It's 100%. We have to own it. We have to say, I'm stepping away. I'm not being a part of that. I'm not going to take that, whether it's listening or participating, because listening is participating. And then, obviously you don't want to even take the step further and be the drama, be the sabotager. It's kind of the only, it's like, can we just not be an asshole?
Okay, so in the spirit of not being an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm going to publicly say on this podcast that has so many listeners that I was once the actor in the sabotage of a woman, and I swear I will not do it again. How about you, Kelly?
That sounds absolutely 100%. I can say that I will never do that. Now, can I promise the same for a dude? I don't know about that, but
no, we can sabotage men as much
as we
want.
Come on. No offense, guys.
We can't be man haters either.
No offense, guys. The camera guys are like, and this is where we exit. Yes.
It's a little uncomfortable back here.
Right? Yeah. Obviously, Pamela's like,
Oh yeah, I'm in.
We take
100%.
we take the cheers, we pledge
Is
it,
that
and
the
say,
oath?
yeah,
Let's do
so
Cheers.
never to sabotage, right?
Never again.
Never.
And to take an active role in making sure others around us are not sabotaging other women.
Absolutely. Pull them aside and say why.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do this?
I like to, one of my well-respected women I know used to always say to call someone in, not out.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're doing something, call them in, bring them into you, sit down with them, have a one-on-one heart-to-heart instead of calling them out for that behavior.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. It's funny, I've been trying to be stronger. Okay, I had a situation where there was someone I know and there were people that were talking bad about her. And I thought to myself, I would want someone to tell me if someone was doing the same. And I did it. And while I actually do not think it's going to make a bit of difference, unfortunately, I really don't. I at least can say, hey, you know what? I let them know. And I gave them like an idea or two that I came up with that maybe could help their situation. And that's it. But I think instead of participating in that and making it bigger than it is, just go directly to the person and be like, this is something. Yeah. So I feel like we should do that more versus just kind of letting it, well, she can just have her own over here. And yeah.
And I mean, you said it before, like all of us are attracted to the drama because it's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough drama on Netflix to go around.
Oh, yeah. There's enough.
Not that Netflix is
bad
sponsoring
reality
this podcast.
TV.
Netflix should sponsor this podcast. Hi, Netflix.
Yes. Hi, Netflix.
But
I love it.
It's true. I mean, we used to, if our excuse is that the drama in our lives is what brings us entertainment, that's a horrible excuse. There's so much entertainment out there that doesn't have to involve hurting other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's just not use that excuse.
Yeah. And also, if you're wanting to feed in or you find yourself participating, asking yourself why. Why am I doing that? What is it? And you might, like I said, you might end up calling your therapist and walking through that a little deeper and working through your own insecurities. But definitely having that self-awareness and say, okay, why? And maybe doing some soul searching and figuring out, what is it within you that's making you want to participate or sabotage that woman.
Well, thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Camille, so much for your unfiltered thoughts. My last question is, what's a topic or issue you'd want to be completely unfiltered? And we obviously want to ask our audience the same thing, but what do you want to talk about next?
That's a great question. There's many things that with the pandemic many things that have become unfiltered through the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot, we trash on social media a lot. Social media does this and that. But there's a lot of things that become very transparent thanks to social media. I love transparency, okay? I'm the kind of person, and you could tell from the stories that I told, I was like, I would rather everybody knows the truth so that everybody can just kind of know how to react to things than things being told and said in different ways. I would love for our society to have more transparency around the money that we all make. Because I feel like one of the reasons why women sabotage other women is because we have this belief that's not truthful, that there's only room for one, or there's only, there's not enough for all of us to share. Mm-hmm. And that's not true. There's opportunities for all of us, and sometimes we create our own opportunities, which is another discussion for another day. But having that transparency, I think, would make us all better actors, like active participants in just everyday conversations than we are now. The fact that we don't know certain things just make us passive, and there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very old school to say, knowing how much people make or asking how much people make is rude.
It's like a faux pas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's fun.
It only benefits the people that make these inequalities happen.
Right, and they just don't want anybody to know.
Not have this conversation. Mm-hmm. Well, and the first story that I shared was about how I was treated differently than other people. And again, I was on the positive side of that imbalance, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that wasn't even a salary imbalance. It was just a behavior, right? You could be doing the same job as somebody else in the same company and make a different amount just because a person in that decision-making process happened to like you better or like you less.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with humans is we have
opinions.
We have opinions of other people. So transparency around salary. I would love that. Unfiltered. Let's make salaries unfiltered.
Let's make salaries unfiltered. Yeah. I love it.
That's a good one.
You got one?
Mental health. I mean, we talk about it, but not really. Are we really talking about it? And like getting into the vulnerable side of things. We all have our own mental health issues we struggle with. And I just feel like we need to talk about it more and talk about it honestly.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Versus what we think we're being honest when we talk about it.
We're not being honest. There's still a level of filter, right? Like there's still things that you kind of guard yourself over, but we're all in the same boat. We all have our struggles. We need to normalize it.
I love it. Well, those are two really awesome subjects for future podcasts. Yeah. Thank you so much, Second Soul Studio. Kelly and your team are so amazing.
Yes.
And we appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
Till next time. Cheers.
See you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good job, ladies.
Yay.
Second Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo-video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.